Wow. Wow, wow, wow. What a day here in Massachusetts. Lots of things dropped, lots of news dropped. Karen Reed all over the place. We have an Enrique Delgado-Garcia update. It's just wild to absorb all of this information today. I think I saw Twitter blowing up and Facebook blowing up, and I had messages back and forth with all my creator friends, and I ended up texting Todd McGee this afternoon and said, hey, we have an Enrique update. Do you want to jump on? He said, absolutely. Let's do it. Let's talk about it. So excited to be here tonight on this Tuesday. Welcome into Let's Talk Live. My name is Brian, and this is LTL Media. Some people call me LTL. Some people call me BLT. Some people have some bad names for me too, but not too often. But it is so nice to be here. And I want to actually thank Mike from the Young Jerks for directing some of his audience over here and hanging out. I really love the camaraderie that we've had between, Mike, Young Jerks, Mazza Media, us jumping on each other's shows and supporting each other and really building these channels up. And I really do appreciate that. So I saw him in the chat earlier tonight. Again, he has the link, so if he wants to jump up at any time, he can. And Mazza Media is going to be joining us here in a little bit. But I'm not going to let my guest waiting in the background. It's been a little while since Todd McGee has been on, and let's bring him in on the panel here. Mr. Todd McGee, how are you?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you? You sound a lot better.
I am sounding better, feeling better. I have the energy back, the color in my face, still have a little nasal congestion, but I'm doing much better. And
Awesome.
Today is great because we've had a lot of updates and a lot of information. But I saw this article that dropped from the Boston Globe, and we're going to start out this evening with Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia. And I literally threw my hands up in the air because, the last major article that we saw was 90 days ago when we had that, the 90-day kind of, anniversary. I don't want to say anniversary, but that 90-day day of his death, where we had that, that bit that Boston NBC 10 did, and they came out and we had the billboard and they did that spot with the family. And I sat, really quick with them and did an interview. And I just feel like reading through this article here today, and we'll pull it up here in a second and we can read through it. I feel like we've been right through all of this. I mean, looking at the team that's been put together under David Meyer, and now seeing that former FBI agents are involved and top brass from the Boston Police Department, makes me think, Todd, this is not a medical episode during a defensive training exercise. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Brian, when I saw the article, I was actually pleased to see the team that Attorney Meyer put together. And that was my position all along. I was very open about his background and his experience with these high-profile cases, and that he doesn't cut corners, and that Attorney Meyer does put in the full effort. And I would only imagine that the team that he assembled, just an A-list of investigators with a massive amount of experience, investigative experience from their law enforcement career. In the article, it did say that it would have been nice if there was a civil rights attorney in there, just to have that extra kind of lens on the investigation. But I'm not snubbing my nose at any one of these individuals that are listed in the article. Top-notch investigators, top-notch professionals.
Yeah, and it made me feel a little bit better about David Meyer because, knowing his connection to Suffolk County and the Mass State Police. And look, I get it. He got that drug lab scandal nailed down and locked down. It was like over 10,000 pieces of evidence that was, and it might even been greater than that, but that was falsified in these cases, and, really screwed up a lot of people's lives. But, seeing this article drop today and then seeing the team that he put together made me feel a lot more confident about David Meyer. And he even said in the article that he's been now meeting with the family almost regularly, and they do have a a special interpreter on their team that knows the law and that has been guiding the family, which made me feel good, inside my heart. So let's bring up this article and we'll read through some of this. I was ecstatic when I saw this drop today, and like I said, I instantly jumped on and texted you and said, "Hey, we got some information."
Yeah.
So from the Boston Globe, former FBI agents and BPD brass, part of the team of investigating the death of Mass State Police recruit Enrique Delgado-Garcia. A little correction in the article. He actually was sworn in as a trooper. So he does have that title of trooper, unfortunately,
Yes.
before he passed away. And we'll read through this. The team investigating the death of Massachusetts State Police recruit, trooper, Enrique Delgado-Garcia, includes former FBI agents, Boston police detectives, and Suffolk County prosecutors. Attorney General Andrea Campbell tapped veteran litigator David Meyer to lead the independent investigation after Delgado-Garcia died in September following a boxing training exercise at the Mass State Police Academy. Meyer has been working behind the scenes since then, has not commented on the status of the investigation. He has not. And I ring his bell almost weekly with emails. I got one response, and then after that, they don't respond to me anymore. But I always rattle the cage. But Meyer's contract and the makeup of his team, obtained by the Globe through a public records request, provided a rare glimpse into the case that has sparked concerns about Mass State Police training practices and left Delgado-Garcia's family demanding answers. Former Attorney General Scott Harshbarger, who has led multiple independent investigations of sexual abuse at New England board schools, reviewed the team's credentials at the Globe's request. He says, quote, "I think Meyer is a top flight prosecutor, investigator, and utmost integrity," Harshbarger said. "And it looks to me like he's a very experienced, sophisticated, professional group of investigators. No members of the investigative team have any past or present affiliation with the state police." And I know you commented to me about that, and I'd love to have you talk to the audience about that, how important that is in this investigation.
Yeah, looking at this article, and really this is our first opportunity to get an inside look at the investigation. We still have a lot of answers, a lot of questions that need to be answered, but this is the first time that we actually have names above and beyond Attorney Meyer. In doing my own homework on Attorney Meyer, was impressed with his work that actually put Annie Dukin, the prior crime lab analyst, behind bars. And just the thoroughness of that investigation, and also not willing to compromise an investigation that literally touched thousands of cases in the Commonwealth. So when you see that kind of work ethic without those kind of results, it's unfortunate we're having this conversation about in a lost life, a needless lost life. But again, to bring justice to Enrique and his family, I always felt Attorney Meyer was the right person, the right attorney, investigator in this case. And the team that he puts together just brings that level of credibility that nothing's going to be compromised, that the investigation will yield the proper results, that there's not the fix is not going to be on, that in a legitimate independent investigation is going to take place here.
It's like I said, it's made me feel a little bit better in all of this. And then, we'll get down to seeing what the members of his team are here in a second. It says, Meyer wrote in the email, one member of former Boston Police Superintendent Robert P. Harrington worked as a Harvard University police officer after retiring and was legally considered, quote, a special state police officer with powers granted by state police colonel. However, he is not part of the state police command structure. Harshbarger said it is important for the public to perceive the investigation as independent from the state police. Harrington's case is not a conflict of interest, he said, describing describing this the special state police officer status as more of a certification requirement than the substantive affiliation with the agency. So they're really trying to make sure that in public perception, they're keeping this really separate. And that needs, it needs to happen. I mean, Todd, come on. We've gone over the track record of everything that has gone on here, especially, let's just say in the last 3 years. It's pretty frightening, the things that have gone on inside the Mass State Police.
And Brian,
yeah.
for your audience that doesn't know the Harshbarger name, Scott Harshbarger, some relation, maybe father or uncle, but former Attorney General in Massachusetts back in the 80s, I believe, into the 90s. But again, very, very credible, very, very name that has good credentials and a good reputation.
And Harshberger says, quote, I think it is at best a tenacious connection. Jack Lew, a retired Superior Court judge, said the team appears to be tremendously well qualified, but he wished Meyer had included, and this is our point here, at least one civil rights attorney rather than exclusively relying on a former law enforcement members. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't add that person to the team. Maybe they take this under consideration and something like that happens. Says these people are honest and distinguished professionals, but they may have a mindset that prevents them from looking beyond conventional police practices, Lou said. So that's one opinion about this. Meyer has also tapped Edith, I think it's Ayuso, former victim. Thank you. A former victim witness advocate in a homicide unit of Suffolk District Attorney's Office to work with the investigation team. Miss, and I'm going to say this wrong again. Is it Ayuso? I think I have it. Speaks fluent Spanish. Ayuso, thank you. Speaks fluent Spanish and is working closely with Enrique's family, with whom we met with regularly. Now, I remember the last update that I had from the family when I reached out to them and said, have you talked to Myers at all? They said they actually started communicating with him on December 30th, 2024. So that was the first contact that they had with him. And now we're finding he's speaking with the family pretty regularly, which needs to be done. The contract was signed on February 5th with retroactive payment for work performed since September. The Attorney General's office confirmed that the investigators have been working on this case since September and did not explain why the contract was signed so recently. Here are the members. Obviously, we know about David Meyer. I'm not going to read too much about him. We've talked about him. Lisa Holmes has joined the team. Holmes is a retired Boston police officer, deputy superintendent, has expertise in one of the investigative key questions, whether the State Police Academy's military-style training is effective preparation for the dangers faced by troopers on the job, or if it places recruits at unnecessary risk. And I'm going to turn to you for comment on this and your thoughts on her, her statement.
Yeah, there may be, I'm speculating a little bit here, but I think she may have had oversight over the Boston Police Academy at one time. I'm not completely familiar with their structure, but if she had that level of oversight, she would be able to speak to that aspect of a college style, federal style recruit training versus the old style paramilitary type of training that the state police conducts. So when we talk about kind of what are the end results, and I don't want to get ahead of you here, Brian, but sure. Things like the boxing program, it's going to go away. It's going to disappear, regardless of the outcome. If there's any wrongdoing or misconduct or whatever, I'm pretty confident that you're going to see that aspect of training. It's yesterday's news.
And yeah, it does. Says Lisa Holmes ran the Boston Police Academy in 2015. That little side quote says Holmes. Oh, here we go. Holmes ran the Boston Department State Training Academy, head of its Bureau of Professionals Department, before retiring in 2018, an opening consulting firm. She now serves as the Boston Cannabis Licensing Board and teaches courses in criminology and policing at the University of Massachusetts in Boston. We have Thomas, I think it's Leonard, and I may be pronouncing that wrong. It says, as a former special agent in charge of the FBI's Boston branch, where he headed offices of the criminal investigation. He retired from the FBI in 2014 after a 24-year career founded by the Justice Group, a healthcare compliance company, according to LinkedIn. During the Iraq War, Leonard served as a legal attaché in in Baghdad before leading the criminal division at the FBI's Boston's office. He led the agency hunt for notorious gangster. Oh, look at this. Whitey Bulger. And what is the connection there, everybody in the chat? Who do we know that defended Whitey Bulger and who is now on the Karen Reed case? And I'm going to watch the chat here go nuts here in a second.
Small circle.
Yeah, it's just so strange, man. This is just so weird. In 2002, his team found $50,000 in the Barclays safety deposit box belonging to the fugitive gangster. Leonard also worked as a consultant at the Feach Group and is a global risk management firm. We have Gretchen. I'm going to mess these names up. Lundgren, I think I have it.
Sounds good.
Is a former. And I'm not trying to insult these people at all, is a former and chief executive mission adversary group of Boston-based private investigation security company. She serves as a prosecutor in the Suffolk District County Attorney's Office for nearly a decade, specializing in violent crimes and homicide, according to the bio in her company's website. She also worked on joint gun and narcotics investigations with federal authorities as a special assistant U.S. attorney. Kim Lawrence, easy last name, is a senior special security specialist with Edward Davis Company, security consultant firm founded by former police chief Eric Davis. She was an FBI agent for 21 years before retiring as a supervisor special agent in the Bureau's Worcester's office. And that's very interesting, having that Worcester connection. Norma Leong, I think I'm gonna have that right, spent 34 years as at the Boston Police Department, retiring in 2017 as a deputy superintendent overseeing major crimes and investigation, according to her LinkedIn. She's worked as a director of security in the Boston Harbor Hotel before retiring last year. In 2016, she served on a task force reviewing Lawrence police handling member of a murder of a 16-year-old Lee Manuel Polino, who was stabbed and decapitated by a classmate. Wow. Paul Joyce is an assistant professor in criminal justice and criminology at Salve Regina University. He was a Boston police officer 28 years. He worked in a gang unit and earned a doctorate in criminology and justice policies from Northeastern University. And we have Robert Harrington. Harrington's a former Boston police superintendent. He spent decades at the department's homicide unit and was appointed to the lead internal investigation bureau. Todd, it's one hell of a team. And to me, as I've talked about this since September, as you and I have talked about this since September, there's a lot more to what's going on. I don't think they would bring in former FBI agents and with multiple years, over the two agents that are on this, over 20 years experience. Something else going on here.
What's important kind of to read between the lines, you need tenured, long-term professional investigators that can walk into another agency, not be intimidated, be willing to ask the hard questions, again, we talked offline about not being compromised in the investigation, and willing to be fact finders. And wherever the facts lead you, you follow. We didn't see that in the Karen Reed trial. What we see here are professionals that were assembled as a team. We can relate it back to the dream team, if you will, because of the background and experience of these investigators. But again, tenured investigators that can go into a major agency within the Commonwealth and be able to ask the hard questions. That's what you need.
Yeah, Leslie says just right here. She says fabulous backgrounds, absolutely know what to ask. And I just feel like we're now starting to get somewhere in this. This is like the first meat and bones that we've kind of heard. And I love the fact that they're being very open about this team that they've assembled. it kind of gives me the we're not going to take any shit attitude here, and we're going to get to the bottom of this, of what needs to be the story that needs to be told. And listen, I was very critical about this as time was passing on. I felt like it was getting swept under the carpet. I was literally tweeting at Governor Maura Healey, Andrea Campbell. I was writing David Meyer almost daily emails saying, let's make a public statement here. Let's give us an update. And I don't know if I had any part of that, but here we go. And now we have this team that's been assembled, and it's just it's a good thing going forward, because I don't want this to be forgotten. This is very, very serious. And I know Todd takes this case very serious to heart too, because he ran that program at the Mass State Police. And, here we are, we're sending, young, viable recruits off to an academy that's supposed to be taking responsibility and watching over the people that are in this academy, wanting to be state police troopers and go out and serve our community. And one ends up dead. And, we're over 150 days out and there's still nothing. So big update. I feel it is.
Brian, I can tell you from firsthand lived experience being at the academy that the staff, myself, you challenged the recruits, but you made sure that it was an environment where they could succeed. You created an environment where if you had to call timeout, you did so for instructional purposes, and then you moved forward. It wasn't an environment where you were setting people up for failure. That's not training. Challenge, yes, but at the same time, you're blending, you're molding, and then eventually you become a mentor before they actually leave the academy. And I use that word mentor for this reason. Because state police train their own, at some point as a staff instructor, you better start teaching them what you know, because someday you're going to be working alongside them and they'll be working alongside you. So had you suppressed that information because of a personality issue with somebody, shame on that staff member, shame on that veteran trooper who didn't impart knowledge in order to make that recruit a better trooper once graduated.
Wow. It's nice to hear that refreshing take from you. And I only hope we just continue to get updates here, because this is very important and I don't want it to go by the wayside. And I'm glad that I've had people like you. I have Mazamidi in the background. We're going to bring him up here in a second. He's helped rattle the cage in this. I know Mike from the Young Jerks has talked about this case as well. And it's nice to know that sometimes the little guys here can rattle the cage a little bit and get things moving. So it's a great article. I'm glad that it's out there. I'll be updating my spreadsheet and adding it to it. And hopefully we get more soon. Okay, let's talk about Karen Reed. And I know we have spicy Maz tonight. And I'm gonna let Maz go off here in a second about this SJC ruling. But before we do that, I am very happy and excited to say, and I'm sure that everybody has found out this day on all of social media, but Mark Bederow has now joined Karen Reed's team. And I'll go around the panel here. I'm going to start with Maz. Your thoughts on Mark Bederow, Mazza?
Well, first of all, Brian, thanks for having me on the show once again. And Todd, it's a pleasure. I'm not sure if we've been on the same show before, but I think we might have. But if not, it's a pleasure. I absolutely respect you and all you've done. And you've been a voice in a big way and been interviewed by a lot of media outlets in recent months about Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia. And I just appreciate all you've done and continue to just use your voice and your experience and insider knowledge on all these matters. So I just want to let you know I have a highest level of respect for you, sir. But yeah, today was a day of mixed feelings. It was a day that really started off with a lot of anguish. And then as the morning continued, it turned into really euphoria. I went from hysteria to euphoria. Really, two moves. Basically, what happened was the Supreme Judicial Court making their ruling on basically what was going to be kicked back to Auntie Bev's court, but now they're saying, guess what? It's denied. And then we find out Attorney Mark Bederow who I've done a lot of shows with, to say the least, is now going to be representing Karen Reed's team, and I think it's for the best. I'll just say on a personal level, the way I feel about Mark Bederow and what decision he's made is I feel, let me move my mic back because it's a little bit louder, someone's saying. I think that this is just destiny. I know some people believe in fate, some people do not, but I just think that everything happens for a reason in life, and that Mike from the Young Jerks was meant to come across Mark Bederow on X, meant to have him on his show. What he said on that show was meant to reach out to many people, including catching the ear of the Reed family. And because there's bigger things going on here, and it's just destiny that Mark Bederow, who's an experienced attorney to a very high degree, is now going to be someone that's joining this super team, which it already was a super team of defense attorneys, but is now going to really take his rightful place on that team where he deserves to be. And this is really big stuff, because what we're seeing here is escalation going on, and it gets worse and worse all the time. And there's really no stopping this, basically a witch hunt of Karen Reed, which has gone on for way too long. And now we see it, the SJC won't even make an effective ruling that will in turn drop, at least remove those charges or kick it back to Auntie Bev's court and put her in a situation where she has to pull that jury. And that's not happening right now. And I think I said to Mark earlier today, we were in chat. Actually, I'm going to read exactly what I wrote to him. Let me get it. Hold on. I'm going to read exactly what I wrote to him. I want to read exactly how I wrote it. I wrote to him, and Mike was in this chat. I wrote, "It's going to suck not to have you for these trial shows going forward, but you're better served on the front lines helping Karen. They've escalated things, and you coming in now is massive." That's exactly what I wrote to him this afternoon after learning this information. And I just think that, it is going to be tough to not have Mark on those Young Jerks episodes anymore. It's even going to be tough to not have his occasional appearance on my show or him appearing on anybody else's show. It's going to be tough. But I think Mike, who had a great show this afternoon, said that, the shows will continue. It's going to be different without him. But I think that what's going on here, we can't have, it was great to have Mark on shows during the first trial, but this thing has got so serious and so intense now with what happened during that first trial that we just can't afford to have Mark on the sidelines. And as awesome as perfect as a job as he did on those shows, he just needs to be where he's going now, and the step that he's taken now with Karen Reed's team is exactly what needs to happen. And as much as it's going to be tough to not have his daily feedback on all those shows that we did during the first trial, it's going to be a massive void. And Mike said he'll find people to come on the show and fill it. And I believe we will. But I think that all in all, as much as that might be a little bit sad not to have him on the shows anymore, we're certainly going to miss him. This is what Mark Bederow is. He's an attorney. He's a defense attorney. He's a fighter, and he goes out there and he gets the job done. And this defense team is getting ready to take things to the next level. It's like a super team. You have great athletes, but sometimes having Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird is not enough. Sometimes you need Charles Barkley and David Robinson and John Stockton and Clyde Drexler. It's a dream team. You need Scottie Pippen and Chris Mullin. That's exactly what's going on here. There's a lot going on. This is a very big fight, and it requires a lot of detail and a lot of time and a lot of focus. And Karen Reed's defense team gives an absolute maximum effort. They are constantly spending hour after hour after hour focused on this case, spending their weekends, spending their evenings, even hours and hours after days in court. This team has been highly focused. And now you have guys, experienced attorneys like Robert Alessi, pro bono, coming in. Now you have Mark Bederow. You need this team to get bigger and bigger, because what's happening here is it's just like when David Yannetti was the original attorney. It just wasn't one attorney. This was bigger than one attorney, and it's bigger than 3 or 4 attorneys. It has been this way. This is exactly the way this is going. And when you see the SJC in Massachusetts, that is basically given. So I heard people, I'm going to say this right now. I heard people criticizing Attorney Weinberg this afternoon. I'm not trying to take shots at anybody. I will say this. Don't for a second think that Attorney Weinberg did anything less than a stellar or a perfect job when he spoke before that appellate court. That attorney did everything that he could and made every argument that he possibly could to put Karen and that defense team in the best possible position to make the absolute best argument to get something in Karen's favor. And that did not happen today. But that is not because of Attorney Weinberg at all. He did everything to the best of his ability. And it's just like the movie Groundhog Day. We're going to get a movie reference where Bill Murray kept trying to help that guy that was destined to die at the end of the day. And the nurse said, sometimes people, sometimes things just happen. Right. And that's the way it is. No matter what Bill Murray did, no matter how much he tried to save the guy every day in that movie. And at the end of the day, the same thing happened. It wasn't because Bill Murray didn't do a good enough job. It's because sometimes this happens. And this is when you look at this state, you look at Norfolk County, you look at the Canton Police Department, the Massachusetts State Police Department, the governor. Why would the Supreme SJC not also have some kind of connection here where they're not going to rule favorably? They're obviously, at the end of the day, it's like some people said, it shouldn't be shocking that this happened. It should upset you. It should make you upset. It should anger you. It should enrage you. It should make you feel disappointed. It should make you want to kick a rock or throw something. It should. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't shock you in a sense that you couldn't have never expected this was going to happen. I personally felt it was very 50-50. I personally felt there was a great chance they might hear what Attorney Weinberg said, but no fault of his own, they made the decision that they were going to make. And you know what? What's great about all this is that this isn't the last play of the defense team on this matter. They can take this to the SJC of the federal government and go up to that level and fight this thing a little harder. I'm going to pause my rant now. Go back to you, Brian, and I'll kick back later in the show.
I love it. I love Spicy Maz.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you said that is that's what I want to convey to the audience. This is not the last play in all of this. Okay. I had a very, very close source today, tell me this is not the last play. You will see something else. And just like Maz has said, they could take this up to the federal level. I'm going to tell you, there are so many brilliant attorneys part of this team now that every stone is going to be turned over in all of this. And I do want to make this point as well, too. Even though the paperwork has been filed for Bederow, still needs to be approved by the court. So just keep that in mind as well. Yeah. And I know Kelly Reed is just checking in here as well, too. Todd, your thoughts on all of this? I don't know how close you've been following everything, but if you have anything you want to add to this, please, we'd love to hear your take on this as well.
Yeah, well, Mike, first off, it's good to see you again, my friend. Thank you for your kind words earlier. I can say that there is no better trio in the YouTube world as Mazza Media, Young Jerks, and LTL Media when the three of you get together.
Appreciate that.
And the reason why I continue to come back on here is that I trust and believe in the work that you guys are doing. You're shaking the trees in all the right ways. You're professionals at it. I encourage you, keep doing what you're doing. So God bless you. Godspeed. And again, all of the work, even for your viewers, it's more than entertainment, right? This isn't just about having a 90-minute episode of on a particular YouTube channel. It's about educating the public. And what we've seen in the Karen Reed trial, and we don't know enough yet about Enrique Delgado's case, but what we've seen in the Karen Reed trial is all of the misinformation. I had completed one of the episodes after with Mike on Young Jerks. I get a phone call at 8:45 at night, and someone that had watched that channel that night, Mike's channel, wanted to relitigate the Karen Reed trial with me at 8:45 in the evening.
Wow.
I'm like, you're wrong. Science proved you're wrong. Science has disproved your position. So again, there's just a lot of bad information that's out there, and people are buying it. So I love the platform that the three of you do. You're consistent. You put everything out there, and you bring people back to center. So kudos to you, Mike, to you, Brian, as well as Mike from Young Jerks. Go
ahead, Todd. I'm sorry. Yep.
I just want to go back a little bit to these last recent hearings
of course,
about the bite expert the witnesses that testified, I feel like their testimony only got stronger. I feel like the opportunity to discredit them and to remove them from the next trial was detrimental to the prosecution. They sounded more clear, more transparent, more affirmative in how they were testifying, as in some cases, as kind of a matter of fact about the evidence that they were opining on. So I just, it's an interesting process. All of us are learning kind of how the criminal justice system works.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see the gamemanship that's being played. And I'll end here with this, Brian, for your thoughts. But the defense is playing chess, and I see a lot of checker playing by the prosecution.
Yeah, I mean, it's been clear, and I think with and I just let me just pull this up before I forget real quick. $5. Thank you so much, Casey. Thank you for the support. It says Todd, in your this is great. We'll do that, and then we'll segue to what I was going to get into. But in your opinion, are recruits that are coming out well trained, going back to Enrique Delgado-Garcia in the academy? Great question.
Yeah, great question, Casey. So typically in all police academies, there are 1,200 hours of training. There are dozens and dozens of subject matter that recruits will go through. Now you have to look at the cadre that's put together. Typically what the state police do is they bring troopers off the road on temporary duty, and they're assigned as academy staff, along with permanent academy staff. Therein lies the question: are they properly trained? Because it's there, as I mentioned earlier, Brian, that mentorship. There has to be a shift from drill instructor, recruit, and then segue phase 3 training to mentorship. If they're getting the mentorship, and then keep in mind, there's a 6-month break-in period that they go through where they're riding. If you ever see troopers riding two to a cruiser, they're most likely one of them in that cruiser is a brand new recruit, just graduated and just got their promotion to trooper. So therein lies the quality, if we can use that word, the quality of that recruit candidate that's now a trooper. And also the extension from the academy is their trooper coach. How good is that trooper coach that is educating them as to the nuances of policing as they patrol the roads in the Commonwealth?
Yeah, that's a good point. What was I just going to talk about? I was going to go back. Damn it. I just had something to ask you and I just totally forgot what it was. Real quick. And I just
super chat and reread it. You'll jog your memory again.
Yeah. Yeah. In your opinion, is recruits coming out trained? Dan, I had a question for Todd and I totally forgot. It'll come back to me. I promise. And we'll transition back here to Karen Reed here in a second. And just a question for the panel. Can Mark Bederow continue to represent Aiden? I would think, yeah, it's just a different client. I think you would have a good argument in that, like, it's just, hey, it's one of my clients. Right. So you can represent basically whoever wants to be on your team. Right. What was I going to say? I think Mark Bederow, from what I've heard him talk about on the last couple of lives that he's talked about, and this is just my own opinion, I could be dead wrong in all of this, but I think bringing him in, you may see him focus and talk about Brady violations, because that's what I've heard him talk a lot about on all of these lives. And he constantly talks about Brady violations. So maybe, Mark Bederow was asked to join the team to, be kind of the Brady specialist. And going back to, the wonderful attorneys, and we have Bob Alessi that just joined the team. I love him. And I talked about this with Nan Gallagher the other night, when attorney Nan Gallagher, when she was on my channel. I love the fact that he is just such a great matchup for Hank Brennan. And I think he's the type of attorney that just is, he's so well prepared. He can break down things that are very easy for the layman to follow. And I think he just gets enough under the skin of Hank Brennan, because when they're in hearings together and they're battling back and forth, you can tell that it gets to Hank Brennan, and I absolutely love it. What I want to do really quick is play this clip during the trial. And this is when Mark Bederow came out with Melanie Little, and they got to meet Alan Jackson and David Yannetti for the first time. And I think in this clip, they actually say to Mark Bederow, and I could be wrong, I haven't heard in a while, but I think they actually said, gee, it'd be great if you were on the team. And
I
Mark
believe
was
they
like,
do.
Wow, thank you so much.
And I remember Alan saying to him, everything all your feedback, listening to it's very, very
yeah, we watch you and we take your points, your talking points. Let's listen to this real quick.
Sure.
Seems so long ago. Mark Bederow to the left. Excuse me.
You may know this guy.
This game like yesterday.
Morning. Good. How are you today?
Morning, Mr. Jackson.
Morning, sir.
Morning. Nice to see you.
Pretty
Good morning.
Yeah.
It was so long ago.
Alan, this is Melanie.
Hi, Melanie. How are you?
This is Melanie
Nice to
Little.
meet you. Nice to meet
And
you.
I
I've
believe
been a
Bederow.
fan of your work.
Really?
That's a very,
Oh.
very special story.
Did you hear that we went to Mexico together?
Apparently so. Apparently
Did
so.
you have a great time?
Did you have a good time?
I
I must have had a good time.
Tell us
right.
why.
It's an honor.
Thank you.
Oh no, it is my honor.
Yeah,
really.
let me tell you, my sister and my mother
Fantastic.
watch you religiously. They love you. They were going to be here today only because you were here,
Oh, wow.
and my mom was a little under the weather, so that's why they're not coming. But thank you.
I'll give them my love.
You've been
Trying very
fantastic.
hard. So have you.
So,
Trust me,
thank
it's
you
all
so
you.
much.
I'm David. I'm Christy Young. How are you? I'm friends with Lindsay Walls.
Yeah, I don't know if I got it.
But whenever I do have a moment and I can watch something, you're usually the guy that I appreciate. So
Oh,
Thank you.
I'll kind of quarterback that. Alan Jackson just said, usually when I have a moment and I see you on some of the shows, I'll watch and listen to you. So that's really cool that he said that to him. I think that's a great honor.
Thank you. You have been fantastic.
And David, yeah, you've been fantastic.
Very much appreciate your commentary.
happy to see you in person. Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's actually educational for us as well because you don't tend to just be sort of, you're not fangirling or fanboying anybody. You just
And I'll kind of quarterback that because I know it's hard to hear. But Alan Jackson says to Bederow, you've been so educational to us. It's just so great to see this all kind of like in the making and now know today that there's been a motion to get Mark Bederow on the team. And it's just very exciting. And, you know, I'm a huge believer in fate. I think that all things happen for a reason. And you got to look at it this, you know, to the audience. Yes, it is going to be very hard to not have Mark Bederow around on these shows to kind of navigate us through the law and his expert opinion on everything that's been going on during these hearings and, you know, possibly Karen Reed 2.0. But he was put in that position to join Mike, the Young Jerks, and be on that panel to get him to that stepping stone in life to be where he is now and be part of, in my lifetime, one of the most amazing teams of attorneys that have ever been assembled. And I think it's a great honor, and I am so proud for him. And I do hope he gets approved to join this team because he's going to be a phenomenal addition to it. All right, let's play this out here.
I want to get something. I just want to say something here,
gives me some insight on
if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you know what's important here was what Alan Jackson said to Mark Bederow. There was they you know, when it's like anything. I remember when I played sports, a lot of times our coaches would bring in, you know, friends of theirs to watch games and give them consultation. How did the team look? What's your critique? What could we have done better? Now our coaches were always very good coaches. They were stellar coaches, in fact. But the thing is, sometimes it's great to have an outside observer or a consultant. And Alan Jackson there comments to Mark that it's great to kind of watch those shows. I watch it when I get a chance, and it's kind of great. It's educational. There's a lot of good feedback because a lot of times when you don't really get that opportunity, you know, especially as an attorney, there's not really many people are going to be watching every moment, giving you that feedback. But it's good because as much as you're involved in everything, you're right in the center of it, like Alan Jackson, David Dinetti, Eliza Little are all the time. It's great to have another attorney out there that can kind of give you that instant feedback indirectly, of course, on the Young Jerk shows. But he was able to kind of give them ideas because Mark would say, well, I like what they did here, but there was a moment where I thought maybe they could have done this or maybe not have done that. And I think sometimes it's great because, again, when you're working all that time, you're so engaged in that. It's nice to have that outside observer. So I also think, in addition to what we believe Brady violations is what Mark Bederow is going to handle, probably some other things as well. I'm more than certain. I think they also want Mark as well because of that consultation ability that he has. He has a very impressive way of breaking things down and analyzing things and giving instant feedback and on-the-fly feedback. We saw this in court when attorney Tim Bradle was representing Aidan Carney as well as Mark Bederow now. There was a moment or two there where Mark Bederow would lean over and talk to Tim Bradle, again, giving that instant feedback, which I think is highly critical here. And I think Mark Bederow can definitely deliver a really, really resounding ability to help this team. Hey, Mike.
Oh, I love
Look at this. Look at this power panel right now.
I
love
you were done for the night, bro.
I didn't come on tonight, but I had to. I heard thank you so much to all of you, Todd and LTL, Brian, and Mazza. Just and better.
I'm the lucky one joining the trio.
We're gonna have some new acronyms.
We're a couple more rings away from getting Captain Planet on the panel.
It's amazing. I just I've been smiling all day.
Yeah,
I know Mazza and me and our mod team, we had no idea. We were like, is he mad at us? Like, did someone die? Like, we didn't know what was going on. So when we found out today, when we got to chat with him for a second, it was just, I've been smiling ever since. You'd think opposite with the SJC today, but we can't wait. It's really, I think it may be Brady violations. I think what's he going to be doing? I think going after the corruption.
Yeah.
This is a guy who, I mean, I read stories about the stuff that he's done. Like, he had a police officer on the stand, and this police officer had done some stuff, and it was evidence, and Bederow's crossing this guy, asking him questions. The prosecution at one point just said, stop, we're dismissing the charges. Like, Bederow didn't get to finish the cross of the police officer because he just absolutely annihilated, just took him out. So he's used to this. This is his thing. So it's exciting. And being friends with him, it's even more exciting because we know this is his thing. Like, he's got to be, and it's not like, this is not, in a way, having an innocent person defending is probably it's a tough job, actually, because it's such high stakes, but this is his thing. This is what he lives off of. So it's gonna be wild to see it. I'm excited.
Matt,
it's so huge.
And I love it. it. Warsman. Yeah, I mean, the thing that I go back to, and I've talked about a lot about this lately, is if anybody hasn't had the opportunity, go on Netflix and watch that 4-part series of the O.J. Simpson, the new updated O.J. Simpson docuseries. And the thing that is very telling in all that, and as we know, there's a lot of video in this as well too, and it was funny because I was talking to my very close source today. I said, I would love this time around the team to focus more on that evidence collection, because that's essentially what they attacked in the O.J. Simpson trial. They went in and took because there was news media everywhere when they were out collecting all this, and they went out and got thousands of hours of this footage and literally went through frame by frame and saw how all these police officers were collecting evidence. They weren't wearing gloves. They were putting in improper containers and storing things. Pieces of evidence would get mixed in. I think they have a real thing here to jump in and exploit all of that. Focus on the solo cups. Focus on that damn snowblower. Focus on
shop bags.
The stop
misspelled names in the police report for Michael Park. Every witness's names misspelled. I mean, I'm a journalist back in the day. We never misspelled names. I got paid $100 an article. If I could get it right every time, how the hell didn't he get it right?
Yeah, I mean, Todd, just even your experience in, roping off a crime scene and calling in detectives and properly, using the proper materials to collect evidence. I mean, you probably saw violations all over this case when you saw it. You saw the snowblower and you probably went, "Oh my God, like what, what's going on here?"
Yeah.
There were so many things in the beginning part of the investigation that were just completely flawed, not following protocols, and that alone in of itself should have acquitted her for the improper police investigation, let alone everything that came afterwards in testimony. So, but to your point, Brian, that in comparing, if we could, to the O.J. Simpson trial, focusing in on the evidence again is it's going to be very easy for the defense to be able to just line up all of the improper process that took place all the way up to the Karen Reed's vehicle being brought into the Canton police station. Why was it stored there? Right? I mean, we can go on and on and on about how many missteps there were in this investigation. So, and that's before we bring in the experts.
Yes.
That's right.
Who would be the expert on police, the procedures? Like if the defense, know anyone like that, Todd? Because I feel like the defense, if they don't have somebody, they should have somebody who's a police procedure expert to go over what they screwed up. Does anyone come to mind?
Yeah, you could have brought in a number of long-term investigators from really any police department, not just state police, but anyone that had any length of time. I can tell you, I spent 2 years in the fire marshal's office. I also spent time as an accident reconstructionist. So those are my times in my career where I would go out to a scene. We didn't know if it was a criminal scene with an arson or if it was any type of wrongdoing, with a fatal accident, but you collect evidence and you follow the facts. And as a fact finder, even if you like somebody for a crime, the evidence makes the innocent more innocent and the guilty more guilty if you're doing the investigation properly. So you could bring in and get someone declared as an expert witness that has bona fides in their career and be able to speak to what would be a proper investigation. And based on what we know, we have an individual on the front lawn of a home in Canton. How do you work that crime scene? And then from there, just let them go right down by the numbers.
Todd, before I get to this audience question, and we have a good question here from the chat, I want to actually ask you, could you see them in Karen Reed 2.0, maybe the defense bring in these policy and procedure manuals when they're talking, to these said police officers, the Canton police and the state police, and they're talking to them about the evidence collection and saying, well, here's your policy and procedure of how you're the procedures of how you're supposed to collect evidence, and you didn't do this. Can you explain that? Could you see something like that maybe happening?
And I'm absolutely 100%. And I'm going to add one more aspect: training manuals. When I was in the fire marshal's office, I went to school for that. I got my certifications through photography, evidence collection, crime scene investigation. I spent 2 weeks with the ATF on bomb recognition school. So you don't just walk into a unit, a detective unit, and all of a sudden you know everything, right? Yeah. There's 100% on the job training, because it is what it is, but there's also certification courses that you go through. So I would piggyback on your point with policy and procedure and not what wasn't followed, and add in, well, how were you trained to conduct a crime scene?
Wow.
How are you trained to interview witnesses?
Yeah, maybe they can call you.
I got a question for Todd. In terms of towing Karen Reed's vehicle, like they did, they took it to the Sally Port and where they took it there. Where would you have recommended, or where would you have estimated or projected that they would have towed that vehicle?
Yeah,
two options. Two options. There's always a tow company on contract. So first option, if you had the ability to secure the vehicle and isolate it so that it in and of itself was a crime scene, you'd be able to say that, okay, there's no tampering here. There's no one that has access to it unless they're authorized. So that's one option. The second option, the closest barracks Closest barracks to the crime scene.
Yeah.
Is that without exception, which means that there is no? So if the state police take over that particular vehicle, and tow it, that are they required to absolutely take it to a state police location?
Yeah, where would
As the
that
lead
be?
investigators,
Yeah.
as the lead investigators, they're the custodial agency.
Wow.
And especially when Canton police said they recused themselves.
Right.
So they
Yeah.
recused themselves, but then they bring the car to Canton police. Like,
Right. So,
Right.
what you just said is important. If they recuse themselves, Chief Berkowitz recused them. All right. At that point, why bring the vehicle back to actually compromise or give the opportunity to compromise the investigation?
Correct.
Just separate it.
And I'm going to add this. I'm going to add this to this. So Proctor's already made his mind up 16 hours into the investigation that he's going to pin it on the girl. And let's add another one to this fold. After Karen's car gets picked up at her parents' house and towed back to Canton, that car sat for 3 days, Todd, before it was even processed. And I look at all this, and you can see me. I'm getting itchy here. You have the potential murder weapon in your possession, and you're going to wait 3 days for the state police crime scene team to come out and start processing that vehicle. Something don't smell right to me. That a lot of hands could be around touching that, and as we saw, a lot of hands.
Come on, Brian. They had yellow police tape around it. You saw it. They secured it with yellow police tape at Sallyport. Come on. No one could have ever tampered with that vehicle while that strand of tape was around that vehicle. It's crazy. That's how much of a farce this is, though. Is like to Brian's point. It's a farce. It's a total farce. They think they're fooling people, which is the funniest part of it all.
And this is again going back to the procedure of things. You don't do an investigation by yourself. On the stand, they admit it. We go out as a team.
Yeah.
As the fire marshal's office, we went out as a team. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of information. And Maz, to your point, Brian, to your point, you want to capture that information in a short amount of time because everything is fresh.
Yeah.
Things get stale very, very quickly in an investigation.
Well, we know why the reason they didn't do that, Todd, is because it was just a setup. It was a big frame from the beginning. I mean, that's my opinion. I think I share that with the sentiment of the panel here. It was been set up since the moment. Let's pin it on the girl. 16 hours into the investigation. Let me ask this question to Todd. So Haas Long has a question for Todd. It said, I'd like to know how Todd feels about the possible implications to the state police that a win for Karen can bring.
I'm not following the question. The implications to the state police. So I'm gonna go beyond the state police and also include the DA's office. It's going to be a horrible look. We talked about the improper testimony, Trooper Paul, and some of the other very poor testimony that was again. We can go on to Brian Higgins in Alberts, but sticking with state police, it's going to be a horrible look. And then tied directly to that is the DA's office because they allowed this shamble of a trial to go on and continue.
Yeah. I love, it was funny, Todd. Ever since I met you, you've joined my panel, you've been on Mike's panel. When you started out in all of this, you were very reserved in what you said, and you've been opening up a lot more. And I think it's fantastic because I think you're seeing it now and you're a true believer of what's going on here. And it's nice that we have such a valuable asset and someone that's not afraid to speak up about this stuff and put bad troopers and bad entities in their place. And I love that you rally for we need change and we need transparency in these divisions. It's scary, man. Like, listen, when people drive down the road here in Massachusetts, it's a little bit more scary. Like, am I going to get pulled over? Am I going to be part of some case of things that are going to be framed on me? I mean, that's how people are feeling in Massachusetts. And listen, it needs to be cleaned up. And Colonel Noble needs to start getting out there and being a little bit more vocal, in my opinion, in cleaning this thing up.
Yeah, people want to know, Brian. I don't disagree. I did take and still do take a reserved position, but there's some things that are just so obvious
Yeah.
that you have to call it what it is. And I do my best to call a spade a spade.
So Glam is saying they didn't process it for 3 days because they didn't have a warrant. They decided at 3 p.m. When they called for the tow before ever seeing the car. But again, I'm just going to go to my point here. Listen, you have the potential murder weapon in your possession. Why would you wait 3 days to get a warrant? I think it just gives more time for more felonious things to happen inside that Sally port. We're going to joggle around the video. The video's out on an iCloud account from some sergeant that's not even a sergeant. It's John Q. Public now. It's a retired police officer sergeant that has this. We don't know how many times this video has been cut up and distributed. I mean, it's scary. We don't even know if we have the original video anymore.
Brian, if this was a drug investigation, investigators would have been able to secure a warrant within hours, let alone days.
Boston police officer. You'd think that would be the priority. Any judge would sign that at any time at night.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, hey, it initially could have started with that 911 call from Jennifer McCabe, not there's a man down in the snow. Remember, you love John. John was my friend. Well, if John was your friend and you love John, then why not start that 911 call at a very critical point in life-saving procedures that, hey, officer down, Boston police officer John O'Keefe down, send everybody that you can. I think there was obviously a missed opportunity there.
Yeah, without a doubt.
It was an in-house situation. That's what it was. I don't mean inside the house. I mean in-house, meaning inside the Canton Police Department with their ties to the Massachusetts State Police. Now, I can't imagine, as we presume, the tampering that they did to that motor vehicle and possibly even the evidence. This is for Todd now. I can't imagine them taking that vehicle the way and did what they did to it, so we believe, inside the Sally Port and actually doing that inside of Massachusetts State Police barracks or any other location with all the cameras and overwatchers they would have had in there. It seems to me that the representatives of the Massachusetts State Police were kind of going rogue there, Todd.
Yeah, Mike, what disturbs me specifically as it relates to the tail ends in the vehicle analysis, having responded to fatalities, hit and runs, vehicle collisions, and in understanding damage that the human body can receive. And when we see information where there's no extra bruising on John O'Keefe's body, when we hear testimony that his body was hit, spun, and launched 30 feet from point of impact, hearing that kind of testimony, and then understanding that the level of trauma that it would take to crack the lens, that tail lens, into a human body, and then to see what was presented as evidence is just, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard to me. Something's wrong. Something's 100% wrong.
And it's funny that you say that, Todd, because literally, and I'm sure you've watched it, the Ted Daniel interview where they said, Ted asked Karen, what is the one thing that is going to set you aside from, letting the public know that you were innocent in all of this? And that's exactly what she said. 7,000-pound vehicle. There's no bruising. There's no broken limbs on John's body. That tells you right there, I didn't hit him. And, and I truly believe in that. And I just always go back to ARCA. ARCA.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Bones break easily too, compared to that plastic. Like if that plastic got shattered, the bone. Sorry.
That's right.
There's no doubt about it.
And we saw what Karen had to say on Fox 25 there, Boston 25 News, I should say, is that where was the bruising on his arms? He would have been hit so hard by that vehicle, it would have caused bruising for sure, but yet there is none. And to this day, I'd still love to know where all the head gash took place in the back of his head, how that got there, no matter how he landed, and no matter what manner he landed. How is that particular gash going to be the way it was, lengthy across, slightly indented in the head like that? That does not happen by falling on grass or even the concrete. It would have caused a significantly different wound, and all it does is raise a lot of questions about the particular, whatever. I mean, they could have even taken him up the bulkhead out of the back of the building, up through the basement, and then his head hit the steps when he was coming up, and they were dragging him up or something. It could have happened there. It could have happened when he fell inside the house, hit his head somewhere. Weight bench. Some people have theorized in other situations, but there's a lot of questions, and really there's not a lot of answers that we've been given. But I find it hard to believe that, and like Karen said, you just look at John's body alone. It doesn't fit what the Commonwealth or the Canton Police Department or the state police are telling us happened. It's a total ruse. It's a total farce.
Excuse me.
Obviously, this guy, we don't know who. Alan Jackson and Karen Reed said we don't know who was responsible for doing this. We might have. They did not say this, but I'm sure people out there have their theories on who was involved. But one thing's for sure, he was not hit by a vehicle. He was not his body. What happened to it was not caused outside that house. It was caused inside that house, and it's hard to prove anything otherwise because the Apple Health data verifies that. You've had experts who have said that Apple Health data is accurate. It shows him going right towards that house, shows him walking up 3 flights of stairs. This is a very cut and dry case. It shouldn't be this complicated, but unfortunately, with the injustice that goes on in Norfolk County specifically, apparently you have to go to a second trial when you should be able to walk. Given the amount of evidence here, they have no evidence against Karen. They only have accusations against Karen. Karen and her defense team have cold, hard facts with actual evidence from Cellbrite, from Apple Health that verify that what they're saying is more probable than not that John O'Keefe was beaten to death inside that house, dragged outside of that house, and left for dead. Dr. Maria Russell, look at his arm wounds. Looks at his arm wounds. Dog attack.
Yeah.
You could,
Without a doubt.
It's like a dozen donuts. Just open up the box of donuts and pick the donut that you want. That's enough to solve the case. It doesn't matter what donut you pick. Every single donut leads to Karen Reed's acquittal, to use an analogy using food. But it's true. You can use it. You want to use Sally port? What do you want to use? Just pick it. That's going to get you to the path of Karen Reed's innocence.
It's so funny how they always try to use Karen's statements against her,
Right?
but they don't want to talk about their statements, which Brian alluded to one of them earlier. How about the spouse in the text messages? Tell him the guy didn't go into the house. The guy, not our friend, not John, not a Boston police officer. The guy. I mean, their own statements. And
That's a classic distancing statement.
Or how about even this? Let's just go back to Brian Higgins' testimony. He said he saw a tall, dark-haired guy come in the house, but he didn't know who it was. That's John.
Yeah.
And
then you dump your phones, and then all this stuff. It just is so much. Pick a donut, it's
right.
Donut.
Mike, if I could add one more thing that you were touching on, I'd like to see more focus and analysis on the body, on the damage that's not there. Not so much on the dog bites. That again, they got a great expert witness for that to speak to that piece. But let's talk about what's not on the body. If we're claiming that the vehicle hit the body, then what is the trauma that body should have?
Yeah,
I'm not going to be able to answer that question.
That's a great point. I just want to pause really quick here for a second. We have well over 1,000 people watching. If you all could just smash that like button down there for me, it's free to do that. It helps get this stream out into the evil YouTube algorithm. We can have more people come in and join the conversation. And I want to get to the super chat, but I also want to just point this out and thank attorney Nan Gallagher. She just donated a $500 Cash App. So thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. And you have been an angel in all of this. And like you said, maybe this is the timing. The torch kind of gets passed to Nan now, and she starts coming on these shows, and she's our faithful attorney that can start.
I gotta say, I didn't get to thank her on my show. She sent me one too. Like, she's amazing. Another one. She keeps hitting me. I'm like, I am so thankful for her. She's amazing. Thank you, Dan.
You really do.
Timing too that she's kind of emerged here as a very vocal attorney and has appeared on shows. Considering that we're kind of for a time being here parting ways with attorney Bederow as a guest on or fellow panel member on shows, and Nan's kind of come in as this new attorney that's not a new attorney, but attorney that's new to coming on shows and willing to hop on a few of them, or quite a few of them for that matter. It's huge. She was on Britt Happens recently as well, which is fantastic. It's definitely nice to have an attorney or two that can give instant feedback from an attorney's perspective and just kind of help us understand what's going on inside those courtrooms and with all these procedures and motions, et cetera.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take $100 of that tonight, and I'm going to donate it to Karen Reed's Defense Fund when we get off the air. So thank you, Nan. I'm going to take 100, and I'm going to donate that to Karen. Let's get to this really quick. Trina Taco, $5, says, if they knew she was a suspect at 3, why didn't they ask any of the neighbors for ring cam as he was LEO? And it's a great point. And my theory on all of this is, well, why wouldn't we show the ring cam footage? Because we know Turtle Boy had that video and went out to the house that was across the street that would have gave a clear view of where Karen's vehicle was said to be set up and backed up 62 feet and hit John O'Keefe and knocked him back. And then she took off. That should have been a clear view in that ring cam video. And my whole thing is, it's just mysterious that nothing recorded that night. The footage is not there. And if they really wanted to nail Karen down, and this is what I go at with the trolls too, if they wanted to nail Karen down, why not produce that video? Well, and be there and just look at, this could have been the Commonwealth statement. This could have been Adam Lally standing up and saying, Karen Reed hit, struck, and killed John O'Keefe and left him to die in the snow. Plays the video, the trial's over.
It's over.
The reason they're not doing that is because I guarantee you that camera picked up John O'Keefe being dragged out on that front lawn and left to die in that snow. And that's just my opinion. That's just
let's
Brian,
speak to that. Let's okay.
Enter Attorney Bederow for more Brady violations.
Yeah, that's why he's there. I'm convinced.
Well, it goes back to another thing too. The fact that they moved the vehicle right in front of where John's body was being dragged, that was done for the sole purposes of, I assume at that particular point, they didn't know what corporation they might have had from fellow neighbors at that particular point. They obviously had to shield something there. So that's kind of your point, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me that all of a sudden, this footage is missing. We don't know where it is. Et cetera, et cetera. Mike, your thoughts on all this? You've been quiet.
I mean, I'm just still processing the Bederow stuff. I'm just looking forward to seeing what the hell he does, because I just know that's it. I mean, I'm looking forward to this. I really am. I feel like what Howie Carr said. I think you said it, Brian, too. You repeated it. 2025 is when Karen Reed is acquitted. This is it. This is as big as 2024 for like a lot of our shows were, but it was also stressful. I think this is it, because it just seems. Someone told me tonight, one of the callers, don't get too overconfident. Yeah. That's what it feels like. It feels like this is just going to come down like that. And I feel like Karen's confident, and like Mazza said, pick a donut, any donut. There's so much shit. It's just never ending. And protective order. We mentioned that last night. There's a federal protective order. I mean, I looked it up. Why do the feds do a protective order? It's either to cover their ass, they're embarrassed, or like RICO, or protect the big case. And think about it. Like the trolls want to say it's cover your ass. I don't believe that. If it was cover your ass, they wouldn't have given the prosecution and the defense thousands of pages. You know what I mean? So they gave them thousands of pages because they're not afraid. If they were embarrassed, they wouldn't give Michael Morrissey all those documents. They are backing this up. I'm convinced something's afoot here. I really think it's going to come down to the feds, and that's when we'll get true justice in the end. But I think this trial too, there's going to be so many fireworks. I'm looking forward to it. I do actually have to jump off. I got to go walk another dog tonight.
All right, Mike.
I had to get on here with you guys. I love you all. Mazza, Rule, Brian from LTL, and Todd McGee. You're the man. You are friggin' the man. I love Bederow. I love Aiden. Everyone involved in this. I'm just so happy to be a part of it. And please like and subscribe to Brian tonight, and Mazza too. Thank you guys.
Yeah, we're gonna do this panel again. I'm sure throughout the trial. I'd love to do this again. It's been such a great panel. Mike, thank you so much for joining the show. And if you haven't already, please, I know we had a Jerks raid earlier. And if you're not subscribed to the Young Jerks, you need to go over there. The last shows that he's been doing, he's been killing it over there. I'm a huge fan of Mike, and he does a great show. Go over and support him, the Young Jerks. Thanks, Mike.
Excellent.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, Mike.
Good
Walk
night.
safely.
Yes. God bless you all. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Take care, Mike.
Thank you.
Go
Carrie,
Bederow.
Carrie, $10 says, I'm feeling a huge win for Karen coming, and finally justice for Officer John O'Keefe. Let's pray. Let's pray for that. Jen O, thank you for becoming a new member. And I have something that just broke here about a half an hour ago that I do want to show everybody. And this was from Christina Rex, and one of my sources just sent this in. Let's read through this really quick. And this is interesting. It's coming from a juror's perspective, and I'm gonna bring up my screen a little bit bigger here. Christina Rex is reporting. This is a statement from another juror in the Karen Reed trial in response to the SJC decision today. I have been in touch with this juror since the trial and confirmed their identity with my own eyes, but they have not felt comfortable sharing any statements until now. So here is a statement from this juror. After serving as a juror in the Karen Reed trial and seeing the chaos that has unfolded since, it is clear to me that the criminal justice system in Massachusetts needs some work. Despite being one of the most progressive states in the nation, as many aspects of the criminal process are antiquated, confusing, and need to be updated, it would not infringe on the role of the jury to require all trial judges to provide clear instructions that help jurors comprehend all aspects of the job that they are tasked with. Similarly, it would not intrude on the jury's function or the sanctity of the deliberative process to require a uniform process and deliver verdicts and verdict slips, particularly in cases involving multiple count indictments. Making these kinds of changes to ensure criminal defendants receive a fair trial seems like a bare minimum our courts owe to those liberty is on the line. And I want to make a quick quote here, and I always go back to this. We have so much rich history here of fighting back against the government in the state of Massachusetts. It started here because of the Boston Tea Party. The Revolutionary War started because we wanted to fight back against the government. We didn't want the government to control us here in the state of Massachusetts. And I find it extremely ironic that years later, that's all that this state has become. And this state loves to put people behind bars. And this state loves to put people that don't belong behind bars. And I agree with this jury. There needs to be a lot of reforming and reshaping our laws, along with cleaning it up all across the state in our police departments, and especially the Mass State Police, to get that cleaned up and back in on par with where it needs to be. Because I'm getting tired of every single time I turn on this microphone and have wonderful guests on this show that we're talking about another case of someone dying at the hands of law enforcement, or whatever it may be. Law enforcement, abusing young girls and then murdering them along with their baby. I'm done. I want to have positive shows. I don't know how we get there, guys, but it needs to happen. I'm going to go to Todd McGee for comment on this, and if he wants to share any thoughts on what I just talked about.
Brian, as you were reading that, the due process clause was kind of clanging in my head. And just for the audience, it's found within the 14th Amendment. Due process is a requirement that legal matters be resolved accordingly to established rules and principles, and that individuals be treated fairly. The first word that starts off, it's a requirement. It's not optional. It's not if the DA, feels like they should or not. And then the 14th Amendment then continues on. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process. And it continues on. So again, this is within the legal fabric of our system. And when it's not adhered to, it becomes a travesty.
Mazza, comment?
Yeah, I'd like to tag in on this. And I would say this: they're not going to fix the system because the system is broken by design.
So broken.
Let's take a look at the NFL. The NFL is a very controversial football league, right? Up until the Super Bowl, everyone believed, and I believe the Chiefs were being favored to win by the referees, at least to get them to the Super Bowl. The XFL had spoken out. XFL is a secondary professional football league that typically plays football in the spring. And they kind of posted a bunch of pictures about how their rule system's a lot better. It's a lot more efficient to prevent controversy. But the NFL, like anything, is a business. They want things to go a certain way at a certain time. And if they ever feel the need to make sure one team gets the Super Bowl or wins the Super Bowl, they'll go ahead and do that. So essentially, to restate my original point, they won't fix the system because it's broken by design. And it's broken by a design in a way that they can manipulate exactly how they want that to be. I'm going to read a statement I wrote on my X page earlier today. It's the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts that, like the governor, the Norfolk County DA's office, have values that are focused on the best interests of how they run Massachusetts. Karen Reed one day being acquitted, then turning around and suing the entire state is not in the best interest of how they run Massachusetts. Therefore, we see how they rule today. It's time to take this to a federal level. And I just think ultimately, like I said, the reason why it's broken by design is because they can manipulate everything and fix the outcomes. If they need to protect their own interests and their own values, they can particularly do it. Now, when you look at Judge Beverly Cannoni, obviously she had some loose ends there. Obviously, there were some issues with her procedure. And I would like to read another statement I wrote today. I'm left to speculate that Auntie Bev knew exactly what moves to make when declaring that mistrial, that even when it was called out in controversy by the defense, her actions and decisions would be ironclad within the Massachusetts SJC. So I think that that's basically what went on here, is that she knew exactly what levers to pull and how, and had absolute confidence that the SJC wouldn't rule against her, and she would be able to do what she needed to do to declare a mistrial, get the jury out the door, and then just basically slam the door shut on the first trial. And even if the defense tried to rule against, argue it at the SJC level at Massachusetts, that would basically get shot down. So I don't think Auntie Bev's shocked at all. Now, I'll say this about the defense to finish my tweet. I believe that the defense anticipated this ruling was highly probable, knowing that it's all a part of the process, which means that I'm thinking that the defense knows that they're probably going to have to take this to the federal level the entire time.
Yeah.
And they'll probably get their justice there. So those are just some of my thoughts.
Yeah.
Mike, I just want to add on, to your point about a broken system. It seems that if you have a dream team, a dream attorney team with, a 7-figure price tag, you'll be able to compete within the criminal justice system here, right? So, if God forbid Karen ever had to settle on a public defender, we wouldn't be here talking about this at this stage of the game, right?
Really? Yeah.
Could you imagine? Wow. I mean, could you imagine that? That would be detrimental. Let me just get to a couple of these really quick, and then we'll move on a little bit here before Turtle Boy starts at 9. Paula B, thank you for becoming a new member. Appreciate that. Carrie, thank you for becoming a new member as well. I appreciate that. And What the Duck gifted 5 memberships. So welcome in new members. That's 1 month free on What the Duck. All I ask at the end of that membership, if you could just up it, and you can pick the $1.99 option that helps keep the lights on here in the studio. Septic Hank the Tank. I love that. Love the guitar there, by the way. Says, keep it up, Brian. Thank you for talking about the bigger picture. And I appreciate that. And that's what we try to do here on this channel. And thank you so much for the 10. I really do appreciate that. And I know Mazza read a statement, and I want to read this. This is something I put out this afternoon once we heard about the SJC ruling being denied. I said, Karen Reed's motion to the SJC was denied, though this doesn't really surprise me given the way that this case has unfolded. The real issue here is someone needs to be held accountable for the death of a Boston police officer, and Karen Reed is not that person. If the Commonwealth had conducted a proper investigation instead of overlooking all of the evidence pointing to those inside 34 Fairview that night, they would have identified the real killers or killer of Officer John O'Keefe. Unfortunately, the Commonwealth seems to determined to do everything it can to wrongfully pin this on an innocent woman. However, as Karen herself recently stated, she's not backing down, and is ready to face this shameful trial once again. And in my opinion, she will ultimately prevail. Get ready, buckle up, because we've got no quit. And what I wanted to talk about just really quick before we wrap up this evening is I was watching from a spot, I think it was CBS or one of the local Boston stations, and they had an attorney on there today, and they were talking about Karen, hey, we have to think about this because in the background there could be a plea deal being worked out. And I almost had to laugh because recently, in the Vanity Fair article that dropped, I think in December, and I could be wrong on that because I need to get my dates and times down, but I think it was December. They said that they came to her and offered her, I think it was 2 years. And she said, absolutely not. I'm going to fight this all the way because I didn't do it. And I don't think that Karen will ever take a plea deal. It's just not on the table for her. She has, again, brilliant attorneys. They're getting ready to add another brilliant attorney to her team. And just to echo off of what Mike said earlier, and I love that headline from Howie Carr's article that says Karen Reed will be acquitted in 2025, and I truly believe that. I truly do. I think that this is going to be. I think that people are going to get a different look at how the defense team is going to attack this case this time around. It's not going to be, in my opinion, a repeat of 1.0. It's going to be a completely different game this time around. That's just my opinion. Maz, what do you think?
I don't disagree with you at all. I think they're going to take on a different approach. You look at Attorney Mark Bederow, who multiple times on the Young Jurks stated that he believes they need to get more witnesses. The defense needs more witnesses this particular time around. You can bet your bottom dollar that's exactly what's going to happen. This is going to be a much more exhausting, and I mean exhausting in a sense not of tiresomeness, but exhausting as in the depth of it. They're going to go a lot further and getting more witnesses. I hope that they'll get witnesses from C.F. McCarthy's and the Waterfall as well. I think this will help with the lesser charges on count 2, which seem to be the most controversially debated portion among the jury. I think that what's gone on in this state in this particular first trial is absolutely sickening. I am fully discouraged by the SJC's ruling today. I'm absolutely downright sickened by it. It's very disgusting. But I am absolutely elated and have my confidence renewed by Attorney Mark Bederow's who is set to be joining this defense team. I think that he's going to be a massive anchor to this team. Yeah. And again, he doesn't need to be Tom Brady on this team. He only needs to be Adam Vinatieri. He's popping those key field goals and key moments. That's all Mark Bederow needs to do. That's all he needs to do here is basically just be that, extra piece of the puzzle that comes in those clutch moments, does a lot of big things that don't necessarily, get the acclaim that a Tom Brady touchdown was. But you look at the Patriots Super Bowls in those early years, those Adam Vinatieri field goals were just like Rami said, the stuff of legend. And I was there for the Snow Bowl game or Tuck Rule game back in 2002.
Wow, good for you.
I worked for security during that game.
Oh, good for you. I didn't know that.
Game. Yeah, I was there. I was actually on the side of the field when he kicked that game winner in overtime. That place was nuts when that happened. It was incredible. But Mark Bederow was going to be great. Me and Mike, as you saw, are absolutely energized tonight by Attorney Mark Bederow joining this team. I don't know if you guys recall, but there was multiple times me and Mike were like, "Come on, join the Karen Reed's defense team or join Aiden's defense team. Come on!" It's just because again, I think Attorney Mark Bederow, like I said, he's an attorney. It's great that he's on shows, but at the end of the day, he's an attorney, and that's what he does. Batman, right? Batman, what does he do best in the movies and comics? He gets in a suit, he gets out there and he fights crime, he fights injustice. He does it firsthand. It's the same thing with Mark Bederow. That's why someone had a meme of Bederow bat signal that I posted on my page earlier today, because that's what he is. He's, the guy is a superhero of attorneys, and he's best served. He's great on the shows, but being an attorney and being in that courtroom is really who he truly is. It's the difference between Clark Kent and Superman. Clark Kent may work at the Daily Planet, but really he's Superman. His job is to fly around and save the day. And that's Mark Bederow. It's great that he's on the shows, but right now he is best utilized being on Karen Reed's defense team and fighting alongside her defense team, her and her family, and getting this job done. And Robert Alessi too, of course, timely manner. But I'm fired up for Mark Bederow. I am absolutely, I have mixed opinions because I'm very, it's just tough to do no more 3M shows for a while. It's just kind of a little bit like, it's a bit of a loss, but at the end of the day, you kind of understand the bigger picture, which is like, no, Mark needs to be in that courtroom. It's going to be tough to be like seeing him there and not on the shows all the time. But at the same time, this guy's going to do what he does. We got to get him out there. We got to set him loose and let stone cold Mark Bederow get out there and start dishing out stunners in a court of law from a legal standpoint. I
love it. Yeah. I love it. Let me just get these 2 super chats out of the way, and then we'll get Todd McGee's final thoughts, and then we're going to wrap up the show here because Turtle Boy starts at 9:00. And actually, if you just hang here after my show ends, it'll direct you right over to Turtle Boy and let him all know an LTL Media raid. I would love that. Romney, thank you so much for the 20. She says, great show. What a day. I agree. And thank you so much for the $20. Jody Mitchell, $10, says it's long overdue and it's time to take politics out of law enforcement. I love it. I love it. I love it. Todd McGee, final thoughts if you want to give on Enrique and Karen Reed.
Yeah, so let me start by saying I co-sign everything that Mike broke down. Love the Vinatieri analogy, so appropriate. 2 things I'd like to see, in the next trial. One is more of the evidence from the federal investigation. I think there is some things that were intentionally left out of the first trial. They'll be extremely useful this time around. Also, and again, a more rigorous cross-examination from the defense. There's no way that the Commonwealth can continue to keep the same gameplay in the second trial. And I just think there's a lot of meat on the bone to be able to pick it apart and to discredit any position or claim that the Commonwealth is going to have. As far as Enrique, again, we've got a little bit of transparency now. We know who some of the players are in the background, a cast of all-stars, and let's see what their findings are. Let's see what comes back. And again, we'll be back here on YouTube talking about everything and really breaking down what that investigation yielded.
I'm just so glad that, and I want to say this, actually, it's funny for the 3 of us here, and I think you have been on a panel with us, Mark, with Todd before when we talked about Enrique. And I just want to commend the both of you for joining in with me on that and really getting this out there. And I hope the things that we've all done to keep his name out there and, getting the billboard. And I have to thank all of my subscribers and members for that, because without your financial help, that would have never happened. And that is something that I'm looking forward to doing, and maybe crowdfunding and doing, another one soon. But that would not have happened. And these 2 gentlemen have been very upfront and helping and all that too. And we've had Nurse Kim over here to help out with Enrique. I know she's rallied, and everybody that's gone out as far as what I call the street team, all the efforts that they've done out there and making their wonderful signs. I want to thank my friend Lauren that actually helped me put together the first non-family Enrique Delgado-Garcia standout. And that was wonderful. I was just so surprised how many people came out in Dedham and stood with us. And I look forward to doing more of those until we get answers in that case. I want to thank the both of you again so much for jumping on this panel tonight. I've really appreciated lately the camaraderie that Mike from the Young Jerks, Mark, Mazza Media, myself, and of course my special relationship that I have here with Todd McGee. None of this all would have happened if I didn't have a YouTube channel. And I'm so thankful for all of you and your help, your expertise, your contributions, and you're down to earth every day, that we can break this down in simplest terms and get people that are like-minded people in these chats and really want to hear what I see. It's a very powerful thing to move an audience like that. And I am very, very honored to be here in this very moment. I feel like this is what I should be doing in my life at this very moment. And again, Karen Reed will be acquitted in 2025. Sandra Birchmore will get justice soon, and there will be justice for Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia. I want to thank everybody for jumping into the chat this night, tonight, all the financial support that came through. I appreciate it. Let me get to this really quick before we go off the air. Richard, thank you so much for the $5. Great team and awesome for Attorney Bederow. Does the defense team have any medical examiner review or autopsy? Could Dr. Russell do that for them? Yes, and I'm not sure if she's qualified enough. Well, she should be qualified enough to go through that. And they did, yeah, the autopsy and medical examiner's report is there. And it was touched on the first trial as well. Again, thank you, gentlemen, so much. Thank you, chat. If you stay here, just stay here until this ends. It's going to take you right over to Turtle Boy and let him know LTL raid. I really would appreciate that. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be doing this again soon. And I love all of you in the audience. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And we're out. Have a good night, everyone.
Reed.
Bye-bye.
Take care.